Welcome to the Reality After Show covering The Challenge Season 39 Battle for a New Champion, Episode 5 Countdown to Chaos. As always, I am your host, the TJ Lavin of the podcast. It's Alex Trias here with my ride or die and also a fellow lover of chaos and a lover of Jordan Wisely. It's Dan Montchal. Dan, how are you?
Jordan, near and dear to my heart. I am doing well. Thought it was another pretty good episode. And I think for the most part, the fans agree. We'll get into all the controversies that were coming on, but ratings did go up this week. So we're trending in the right direction.
Yeah, it's almost like having champs there does help bring in more viewers. Who would have thought that?
It's almost like they know how to make better TV. Who knew?
Who knew? Well, Aesop didn't know. Aesop did not know because he makes friends very quickly.
Apparently, you could get your liver from, or not liver, but like a kidney from him pretty quickly if you really needed it.
Yeah, I don't think I want his liver. I don't think I want the liver of anyone who's on reality television, to be fair.
Oh, absolutely not. That's damaged goods right there.
Yeah. But yeah, so we started with the episode to get back to the house. And Kylan has his win, but his win is overblown because we're on to the new thing, the new hotness. And the new hotness is the clock that is in their house starts ticking. There's 13 hours until chaos ensues, which means once we start the next daily, we are now in level 2 of the game. Chaos. Did you know it was chaos, Dan?
I wasn't entirely sure. I think it was about the 17th time that it was, forced in there unnecessarily that it really started to click for me.
See, and I do appreciate James later in the episode where during the challenge he still talks about control. And I respect it.
I mean, it's for as much shit as we have given James over the first few episodes of the season. He does nail it there with his confessional because he knows that when he's able to work in control and chaos, it's gonna make the episode.
It's gonna make the episode. And do we even say by the end of this episode, is James UK's best hope for a champion this season?
Yeah.
Like you look at the tape.
Unless Melissa can go on some magical run, which who knows? James probably is the UK's best scenario. But speaking of that, another theme that has been kind of really forced in these first few episodes. I have a question for you.
Okay.
So there's been a lot of complaints over the past few main seasons, specifically MTV. Can I ask you, what's the difference from the vets coming in and all the vets having this larger alliance picking off the smaller rookies, as opposed to the larger US group coming in and just picking off all the UK alliance?
Oh, there is
difference.
The only difference is these people aren't people that we've known since the early 2000s, or even you could even go and say like 2010, and have gotten over a decade's worth of time with them on the show. And because that's the challenge. The challenge is a bit less about the game and more so about the personalities that just keep coming back in those relationships. So the only difference is that in terms of the most screen time of any of them has been probably like Michelle and Jay, just including Survivor of it all, because the amount of people that watch Love Island and the challenge is it two different circles almost entirely. Not saying it's a bad show. Who doesn't love some messy drama? But it's different. It's different in that regard, but it's the same in terms of what you're saying in terms of like how the season is going, how the game is being made up. Mm-hmm. And you could also blame the people that you want on the show for the show being like that, because who do these people learn from?
True, that's fair. You could say that, but I mean, you just think about it as you're more likely to work with someone who you've met before, you've had some type of relationship with. There's even like the entire Ride or Die alliance. Now, Chauncey did a poor job of kind of, hey, have I ever screwed you over? But you're still more likely to work with someone that you have a base history with as compared to a Zara or someone like
Right.
that who you've never met before.
Right. But sometimes you can be an ace-off, and you become blood brothers with Corey after knowing each other for 2 weeks and whatever amount of pregame they had.
Just willing to do anything for the guy, and until he's not.
And shame on me, because during this scene where you have Corey and Asaf like talking about like how the game's now fucking started and it's time to start making bigger moves, and you get the Asaf confessional saying that he wants to protect Corey, and the only other person like he's truly valuing is Jay, because Jay's the only person who truly knows what Asaf's like social political leanings are in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And the quote that I should have took more weight on was Asaf going, "No one knows how close I am to the Americans. Hell, the Americans don't know how close to the Americans I am." And like it went one ear and out the other for me while I was watching it. Wasn't thinking anything of it, but like the one thing you knew for certain was Asaf was like, Corey is a brother to me now. Corey is someone that I will protect always, and I should have known better.
I think the only reason why we may have been kind of tricked into thinking they weren't going to turn on each other was because they set up a similar storyline last week between Huey and Corey, where granted in the past they had, Corey called Huey out into elimination, but it was kind of setting up the same type of circumstances where you thought, oh no, like Corey's going to betray Huey, and he doesn't. So I get where you're coming from on that leaning into it, I was like, okay, like they're really trying to force this relationship out of nowhere because of a few scenes that we see them together. But
right, like we had a couple scenes here and there in these first few episodes where more so from Asaf than from Corey, we're hearing that they are like really tight and something that people don't know about. Which seems to be Asaf's big thing, is like being close with people, but no one knowing about it. But if no one knows about it, how useful is it for you? How useful, how much pull can you have in a game where all of your connections are these secret connections, but you don't get to wield any of that power from having those connections?
yeah, because especially if you follow social media, you can see that Jay and Asaf, they are close. It's stated in the episode, but you see them more. They're doing like music type videos and stuff like that on Instagram. But maybe in Asaf's mind, he's just more of, we've talked about before, but like, I have Jay, like I'm good. I'm in with the Americans, when it's really, okay, maybe he doesn't have these relationships than we thought, other than, okay, I guess Asaf's a number, but what does that really mean for a Horacio or I don't know, a Norris, Michelle? Like, who really knows?
Right. Absolutely. In their mind, they're like, he's part of the American numbers, but outside of that, how far does that reach, really?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Corey is that far off. Like, I think some people do prioritize Asaf in that alliance, but I don't. Maybe he's not the bottom, but like, he ain't the top.
No, he's not the top. And I would think that maybe the people that have Jay higher up, like as Jay being their 1 or 2, maybe he gets prioritized a little bit higher. But someone like Norris, Olivia,
Yeah.
What does that really mean to them? Yeah, the girls specifically. What does that really mean to them? Or even Horacio. Like, who knows?
Horacio's just doing his thing. He's not looking for love or any romantic interest at all. He's just here to be a competitor and really represent, and just like he wants to be one of the big dogs of Challenge Lore. That's all he is. That's all he's here for. We're definitely not going to see anything else, and we definitely have not seen for the past several months anything else that has happened after the fact due to things that we start seeing tonight.
What a fucking stallion.
I think Nari says that too.
That's all I got to say about Horacio.
Okay, but we do see some of the U.S. people talking, and ultimately we're just seeing like Jay's like talking about how with this new phase, I'm so positive that everything's changing as if they had these confessionals made after the fact. And I saw someone mention it on social media. What do you think about the fact that they've clearly just been doing the same, all the confessionals at one sitting?
It's really weird because I saw something else on social media that I'm going to assume is true, but we can see as the season plays out that they're going to continue to make them continue to do all the confessionals in the same outfit, which is weird, but I guess it's simply so production can pick and choose what they want to use as the season goes along, specifically because maybe these guys aren't necessarily giving the best sound bites all season, so they can choose, hey, this is the narrative we want to point this episode. I don't care you said this 2 weeks ago or you're going to say this 2 weeks from now. It fits in perfect here.
Like, I guess I get it from that regard of like, especially if you're making like your super trailers and your mid-season trailers, like if you have the people all, you do it all in one sitting, going through episode by episode, getting it all done. You get rid of the chance of spoilers because you don't see someone in something new. But it's just weird. The biggest hit on this for me is Ed with his like recently out the shower hair for all of it. Like I sort of feel bad for him that's the look that they're like, this is your look. This is your look for the entire season. You know, it's interesting.
It is weird. I definitely think that they're trying to be able to use the most material for the season because we've stated it in the past, and it's why the season struggled a little bit not having the veterans there. Is too many of this cast, they view this as, oh, this is a competition show. This is very serious. This isn't what the challenge used to be. And I think from a lot of those people, like I'm thinking about Kylan specifically, where his mind's only on the game. That's all that matters. Is when that's your focus and your mindset, you're probably giving more boring answers because you're not thinking about drama. You're not thinking about how can I make a good confessional or something that's entertaining. It's more game, and not as much of the old fun atmosphere that we kind of grew up and were used to.
Yeah, don't worry. I have someone specific in mind later on. I made a note about it. But be more like Corey. Be more like
100%.
You know what? I shit on Callum. Callum's confessionals are funny. Like,
oh yeah,
he at least injects a little bit of like his own personality while saying very generic things. So at least it sounds more interesting. Like, be Michelle, like someone who understands the game. Like, Jay's getting there. Jay was a very bad confessional person, like originally. He's getting there. He's getting a little bit better. Olivia's great. Nerys is great. Like, have some personality with how you talk. Like, even Ed does a good job with the stuff they give him to say. But like, don't be Kylan. Don't be Colleen, who I'm sure Dan just realized again is on the season.
I keep forgetting that she's there. There's a few on this cast that I keep forgetting is there. And I think part of it's some of their confessionals. I did see, I forget who tweeted it out, but it did make me laugh that it was just, someone stated, I don't think this cast is necessarily that great at the game, but it's almost entertaining because so many of them are equally bad at it.
Oh yeah. It's like for people that watch Survivor Gabon, it's a bunch of bad game players for the most part. It's a shit show I can't stop watching because you're just like, who's going to outdo the other in how bad of a move you can make and how much of an enemy you're going to make of yourself to everybody else. So like, I think it's okay if you come into this season with that mindset of like, this is a competition show, but also come into this being like, this is my audition. Like, we had other chances, we failed, we go out early. This is my audition tape to be like, hey, if I'm gonna be messy as hell and like go out in like this huge blaze of, well, it won't be glory, I'll tell you that, but you could come back. Like, Corey, this is a Corey episode, so I'm gonna be talking about Corey a lot. Corey is someone who I'm like, could he potentially win a season? Who's to say? There's a possibility. But what is fascinating about him is he has this great ability to consistently put his foot in his mouth when his foot is already in his mouth. Like, he just does these things where he has these moments of like, I'm just gonna snake you, I'm just gonna snake you, and then suddenly like just clear the table of their friendship entirely, and then in his next breath be crying over it to somebody else. And I find that fascinating. And so I'm like, I love having Corey on my television screen. Am I rooting for him? I don't really root for or against a lot of people on these shows anymore, but I'm entertained watching him.
It's entertained watching him, and it's kind of like what we're seeing with the current season of Survivor that's going on right now, is like the Bruce of it all. Bruce is a horrible game player, but every week you know that he's there, and he makes the show more entertaining by not making logical moves. And it's what you see from this cast. We see it, specifically from Corey this episode, and be more like Corey. I think every episode we know Corey's there. He's, it's been him. It's been Huey the first few episodes, the Jay, Michelle, Olivia. Give me something each episode, even if it's just a confessional or a moment in the house, that makes me remember you're there. Don't be a Colleen.
Hell, be James. James is actually doing great in this house. We shit on him. But for me, it's out of love, because I love to have someone to shit on. But you see him in the game. You see the clips that they're showing us. Like, we see moments where people are just like absolutely annoyed by him and his hubris. And then on the second hand of it, we see with Corey and with Huey, like these moments where he's like allowing himself to be sensitive and be like, no, I actually genuinely like this bloke. I want to see him do well. Once the US alliance cracks, I'll be able to bring this person that I enjoy in with me. Like, he's thinking about the game. He has the hubris that you need in a reality TV person, and could work with some more inflection in his confessional. But maybe don't look down all the time. But he's getting there. He's getting there. It's a work in progress. But this isn't just about a Corey episode. So it's also a Kieran episode. So because we see the US people sort of trying to decide, well, how are these dailies going to go? They're speculating on what's going to happen. Is it going to be pairs? A lot of people are speculating it's going to be pairs. And Nerys is like, does it make sense for us to just all team up? Or does it make sense for us to align with some of these people in the other alliance? Like, should I align myself with Kieran if we're allowed to choose partners, so that at least I have some power in that relationship if we were to win, instead of Kieran just having full reign to just pick apart our group? And Jay just goes, fuck no. Nope. Nope. You're not allowed to align with the good UK people.
No, this is one of the things that I'm curious to see how they keep picking partners moving forward, because I do think it's good. We know that sometimes you're going to be in pairs, sometimes you're going to be in teams. That are they going to make it completely random because it's chaos, or are they going to let them pick their partners or teams for some eliminations? I think that element of the show is always going to be good, because depending upon what the random draw is, or just how partners pair up, you never know the dynamic that it's going to have. And depending upon who your partner is, you're kind of standing with another group, could always change, because it's always going to be randomized.
Well, it has to be randomized, because if you allow them to pick, you know what that gives them, Dan?
Not chaos. It gives them control.
It gives them control. We're not in level 1 anymore. Like, we're in level 2. We're in chaos. You can't pick your partner. That's insane. Why would we let you pick who you want? Come on now. But we do get this thing of Kieran and Zara sort of like bonding, like training with each other. It really just a setup that Kieran's gonna most likely be going into elimination or something. You don't at the point of the episode, you're not sure 100%. But Kieran, it was the runner-up in the Australian challenge, which Dan and I covered with Johnny behind the paywall for if you want to become a patron at realitypatron.com. We had a great time covering that season. And Kieran was a focal point in there that we said could potentially make that jump from the Australian series over to the main series, which, is positive considering the Australian challenge will never happen again. But it's interesting this perspective everyone has of him because I think he's competed well, but I don't think he's done anything that has really stood out where everyone just has this impression that he's one of the best people there.
No, Kieran, he's interesting, and he's someone that I think is actually could be built to keep coming back, or at least to be given a second or third, or maybe at this point it's a third shot. He's someone that you at least he's there, and I don't know, he might be the most well-rounded coming from that UK side of things.
Okay. That's fair. I could definitely see it, and with his background, he'd probably be a really good runner at the end of the day in a final. But we're now at the daily, and the daily. Welcome to chaos phase. Chaos, 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 chaos. Say it as many times as you want until you pass out. It's chaos. Okay, it's no longer control. It's chaos. But the first daily, you gotta have the big rig. You always gotta have a big rig in a challenge season.
Makes
Dan?
Everything better. Maybe it could. Who knows?
Maybe. Who knows? They also like spinning people, so it's upside down world. Play on words there, brother. And this one they are playing in pairs that were quote unquote randomly selected. Definitely randomly selected.
It's like the randomly perfect algorithm. Except this is it's completely random, but we're going to let TJ pull the partners from a case that nobody can see. So was that it predetermined?
Production had already created the pairings for.
Yep.
Okay.
It's hard to believe that TJ was just picking random tiles from a briefcase.
Yeah.
But who knows?
And I'm not even saying that in terms of the pairs that ended up being made were oh, this is clearly production rigging outside of Kieran and Zara just happening to be paired up after having their knowing that they're the two targets of the other side. But in this challenge, you are strapped to a propeller on a double stacked truck. When TJ says go, the truck will be hauling ass down the runway and the propeller will spin. As you are spinning at the top, there are a bunch of rings that you will need to grab, and you're trying to land them on either targets or onto poles. If you hit the yellow targets, there are 5 points per ring. And for each pole that you get it on, that is 10 points each. Pole control. Matt Bischoff, where are you, brother? This is your challenge. Most points wins. And only one pair, or the pair that wins will be safe from elimination regardless. So we pool, and the partners are Asaf and Michelle, Callum and Colleen, Kieran and Zara, Corey and Raven, Ed and Olivia, Emmanuel and Berna, Jay and Melissa, Kylie and Mariah, Big T and Horacio, and James and Maurice. And my first thing is we need to lose more people.
It's too many people. It's way too many people.
Yeah, that's still 10 teams. That's 10 pairs that you can make up. And some of these groupings, people are feeling pretty solid about. Obviously, Asaf and Michelle feel pretty good about their partnership, but they're also feeling pretty good about Corey and Raven being paired up because Corey's part of the alliance, and Corey's Asaf's blood brother of 2 weeks. And pregame, I'm gonna keep saying and pregame. And Michelle's and Raven's here trying to reintegrate within the U.S. alliance, so she wouldn't target a pair that is only U.S. alliance, right? And who's to say she was? I don't, and like, to all intents and purposes, let's just go say how it is. Corey and Raven destroy it. Corey gets a huge advantage from just like having such long arms that
Mm.
if he was ever down near the pole with a bunch of them, you put them down. Asaf and Michelle had the unlucky experience of being the first team where they were just trying to do like one or two at a time. I think the clear strategy was to grab a bunch, and either wait to try to drop them all onto a target or wait to see if how lucky you can be on getting the full stack onto one of the poles like Corey does. Because if you can get a group of those rings together, it gets rid of some of like the variability of like wind and like these rings look flimsy. So if you're throwing them as a group, maybe they are a little more solid going down and be able to be more firm as you're trying to hit your target. That's my opinion on it, Dan.
No, that makes sense. Because I'd wonder, it did seem like as the propeller's going, it was timed up pretty well with the truck that every 2 to 3 rotations, someone who was on their downswing was going to be close to the pole. But this was definitely trial and error, and you do see the teams do better as it goes along, which historically is almost always the case of, oh, I get to see how the challenge is played by the first few people that are going, and you make your adjustments, as it goes on. But agreed, there was, for the most part, I was fine with how it went of, let's highlight a few pairs, but for the most part, we can kind of fast forward through it. It's not all that important.
Yeah, like a lot of teams didn't do well. Like and I highlighted like the main teams that they wanted to focus on for us that didn't do well were Kieran and Zara and Emmanuel and Berna. Kylie and Mariah also didn't do well, but they were part of the just slide them by. Yeah, I was surprised Kieran and Zara did so bad. Not as surprised with Emmanuel and Berna, especially since Emmanuel decided to just take all of them and seemed to just be chucking them with no thought at all. Which I think they only made them a point is just because now we're starting to see at least some of the women are looking at Emmanuel as like someone that they don't necessarily feel great about. So he's now having a little bit of danger on him.
Yeah, I was a little surprised how poorly they do in this challenge. And you even have Berna making the comment that, wishing that Emmanuel didn't take as many rings and to make it more team friendly. But for the most part, I think Emmanuel was looking at it more of, the women are struggling with this challenge. I need to carry it. Where I think Berna was, with her acrobatic background, was probably well more equipped to deal with this challenge than not even just most of the women, but most of the people in this house.
Right. Like, I think her only downside is probably just the fact that she would be smaller. But like, yeah, with her like just career background, I felt like this was a challenge that she could have done very well with if given the opportunity to. But she wasn't.
Well, we just needed to highlight here for the first time of this season in this episode that maybe Emmanuel is a bit of a douche. I could be biased in saying that because of things that happen later, but who knows? We'll get there.
Dan is a very disgruntled lover right now.
Don't come after my boy. All right. It's not necessary.
But okay, so ultimately it's not a contest. Everyone knows that Corey and Raven won. And immediately from there, I'm like, this is interesting, where you get a confessional from Zara going, well, I feel comfortable here because, Kieran is close with Raven, as in they'd be hooking up. And she doesn't feel like Corey would betray her because they just made up. What could go wrong?
No, it's like no one ever uses the excuse of, I've already said your name. That's what I'm going to keep going with.
Yeah, and then then they hear the twist, and the twist is not only did you win, not only are you safe from elimination, but right here, right now, you have to select one man to send to the arena. And so, like, you had that confessional from Zara, and then you have this confession from Asaf, and like, well, this is perfect. Like, Corey is my brother; he wouldn't put me in. And then they let him. They should have just cut it right there. But instead, they let it become obvious that Asaf was going to get picked. Because then he was like, right? He wouldn't do that to me.
No, he would never. The most confusing part with me was, you see, all right, Corey and Raven win. They kind of are given their second to talk about it. And just the whole conversation there is, we want to make chaos. We want to take this big shot. And this is where you lose me a little bit of how choosing Asaf right here is the big shot. Sure, I think it's more of a logical sense of being, hey, Asaf doesn't have as many connections in this game because, hell, half the US alliance doesn't even realize if he's there or not. But I don't see how taking a shot at Asaf is a big move.
Well, I think it was the resolution. It was like, this is me consolidating right now. If you're Corey, because like Corey comes in immediately and it's just like, I want to put Kieran in. I want Kieran in right now. And Raven obviously pushes back and goes, no, but what about Emmanuel? Like, Emmanuel's not in the American alliance, even though he is. And I personally don't want to do Kieran. Like, I'm good with Kieran. And then we start seeing Corey, mess up a little bit, where he essentially labels a majority of the UK guys, as well as a couple Jay and a couple of the US people, is like, I'm not picking all these people. And so if you're not picking all these people and Raven knows, well, we have to make a decision, it's sort of like a soft by default at that point.
Yeah, that's true. I was kind of curious that it wasn't Column, just simply because he's partnered with Colleen, which once again have to remind myself that she's on the season. In my mind, I thought, oh, there was a good chance, if you're ignoring the edit and the storyline so far, that could be a good team to be picked. But they went with Asaf.
Yeah, and then Asaf calls him a weasel. Which, I don't know, it just sounded hilarious hearing him call someone a weasel. But then we have Montchal starting the spiral. Because, yes, did TJ just say pick a guy? He did. He did. But I think this is also a lot of people going like, well, this is the chaos stage. Would it be as straightforward as, yeah, I randomly selected you all as pairs, but it'll only be a guy say? Because they didn't say anything beforehand. So you have no clue what it's going to be. So as much as you have a lot of players going like, oh, Montchal has no reason to be spiraling. Why is she so upset? Well, one, she knows that Asaf is part of the US group. She also knows Corey's in that group, and Corey picks Asaf, which is essentially at most attacking two people within his own alliance. But also, you're putting her neck on the line after she feels like she did a lot of work to protect Corey in the last round, and they also have the relationship from Spies, Lies, and Allies, where they were partnered up and they went home together. Like, there's stuff there, and now there's a chance. It's unlikely, but there's still a chance that TJ goes to the elimination and says, oh, well, yeah, you picked the guy, but you're also bringing down their partner as well. So, Montchal, come on down. So, like, in your head, you don't think you're risking the women. But Montchal has every right to feel like you are risking her.
Yeah, she has that right. And maybe it's just the benefit of our knowledge that we already have, that we knew that it was just going to be Jordan coming in, and they have it set up that these champs are coming in, 5 males, 5 females. So of course we know that Montchal isn't going to be in any danger. Mm-hmm. But it's tough to really put yourself in Michelle's shoes right here. And you would think, sure, she has every right to be upset. But I also think that, oh, well, no, this is chaos. And so it's really tough to put yourself in everyone's shoes and say who was right and who's wrong in this scenario.
Yeah. So, but ultimately we have that. And we know that the deliberation is now turning into a nomination where everyone else is going to vote for the second guy that will go into elimination, assumedly against Asaf. And then we get one of those rare moments that I love where it's before they start transferring everyone back to the house, and you have everyone fighting, and you have Ace of like yelling at Corey and like calling him a bitch and a coward. I was your friend. I was protecting you. And then Corey's just follow up was, I met you 2 weeks ago.
Which was no, this whole thing was phenomenal. I thought it was great by both of them right here. I actually gave both of them props because it's the far of, hey, we talked about this. Corey is going to play messy. Corey's going to do what Corey thinks is right. But then also Aesop taking it so personally. It's like, this is great. This is something that this season has been missing. Let's see some tension. Let's see some alliance being burnt down. Finally, we're getting some good TV.
Right. Like, we're getting some good TV, and I love it. I love seeing people caring and not just being like, oh, well, it is what it is. He picked me. I guess I'll just get ready for elimination. Like, no, like, I'm pissed off. I'm coming for your head, and we'll see what happens. But we get back to the house, and Raven sort of like lets Zara in about like, it's like, I wanted to do Emmanuel. Like, Corey sort of exposed himself. He didn't want to do like half of the UK. And then you get that confessional, I think, from Raven. It's like, well, if he wanted to protect like half the UK, but he's in the US alliance, like, what is Corey up to? What is he doing? And from our knowledge, we don't know that about Corey yet. Like, that sort of came out of the blue where he's like, oh, I won't do Callum, I won't do James. Like, and then like he wanted to do Kieran, but he wasn't able to. Like, are we now going to start seeing that through line of Corey's trying to like double dip? Like, he's trying to have does he have this plan that we aren't privy to of wanting to eat at the US alliance, but like sort of go back and forth so that you have these two power structures always going against each other? But if he's good with both sides, even if he has a messy play like this, would he ever really be in the crosshairs?
Looking at it on paper, I don't think it's a bad move by Corey trying to play the middle and double dip, because of course he's part of this US alliance. He has a good relationship with Michelle because of everything they did in Spies, Lies, and Allies. But looking at it from his point of view, it is laid out pretty clear that, okay, I'm with the Americans, but the main majority of this Americans is this ride or die alliance that he wasn't part of the season. He's not part of that alliance. So, looking at it and taking a step back, it does make sense. If I can keep, the UK and this ride or die portion of the American alliance so focused on each other, I can keep slipping by further in the game with, maybe not getting as much blood on his hands, but also making sure that there's that tension there between the two.
Right, and then like we already talked about it, but like there's the through tension through the rest of this of like, why is Michelle so pissed off? Like, you burnt two people by making this decision because we don't know if it's also a women's elimination. But it's time for the bar, and everyone's having a good time except Asaf, who's just wanting to stare daggers at Corey and do the elimination right there, right now. I assume he wants to dance off because I'm pretty sure that's what he did. Like, so you think you can dance as well? So like this is the elimination he wants.
He did like 15 different game shows where he was there for a hot minute. Like, I know he was also Are You the One? He was on Tori's season.
Mm-hmm.
He's, I give it to him that he's fired up. He's ready to go. He's very confident. I don't know necessarily where all this is coming with, but hey, false bravado and confidence makes reality TV. So go off, Face Off.
Exactly. And this is also where we started hearing him. As much as we hear chaos, we hear just as much as Soft saying, I want to go against the biggest, the baddest, the smartest. Okay. Good for you. Good for you, Aesop. Then we have a scene about that's what it was. I have in here that Colleen is a waste of space. Because this is where like I think it was like Melissa and no, Big T was talking with Kyland about him and Melissa, I want to say. And like sort of trying to squash some stuff. And Colleen goes like, it's such a waste of time for people to try to find love in the challenge house. I'm like, Colleen, you're not doing anything. Go do something, please. Like, and Fisa does more on House of Villains than you.
That is a low bar. It is kind of surprising because while it was Kim and Colleen, they weren't long for the ride in Ride or Dies. But I felt like you knew Colleen was there. And hell, I mean, there was even some better stuff of some of the arguments she was getting in between with Devin last season. So I get why they brought her back. But it's like, man, she's just a space eater at this point. She's not doing
just
anything.
There. She's just there, and she's someone who I would put more money on. This is the last time we ever see Colleen on the challenge, because like you're not bringing entertainment. Your confessionals are nothing, and all of them are about like, oh, these people are stupid for doing something, but you're not doing anything. And sure, that is a good move to like last longer in a game, but like you're not getting screen time. You're not like making your presence felt as like, oh, I could be a challenge staple, which is the whole damn point of this season. So if you're going to be a wallflower when it's a bunch of wallflowers, what are you going to do when they start reintegrating the champions again?
Well, I agree with that. There should be, at this point, unless she does something big with her remaining time on the season, there's no reason to have her back. And that would be my thought too. The only, I guess, knock in that is that the challenge keeps trying to bring Nam back. So who knows?
Hey, they didn't bring him back this time. They're done with him, hopefully.
He was initially, I believe, on early cast speculations. He was on this list. And then whether that was just a false report or something happened that, two sides couldn't come to agreement or something with his filming schedule. But I remember, because I think we even had, a conversation that went back and forth in our group chat being like, is Nam going to be back again? Like, no fucking way.
All I know is I won that bet of he would not make it even past half an episode. And I was right.
Well, that's just his destiny. That is his destiny on the challenge.
Yeah. And so I called Nam. I was like, hey, you need to drop out so that I win this bet. And Nam did it. He's like, that's worth more than whatever I do on the challenge.
I did love in one of the challenge Facebook groups, there was someone that made a comment on there. It was like a picture of Nam being like, I'd love to see him come back. And this was weeks ago, so I forget exactly what it was said. But our boy, our fearless leader, Johnny Fairplay, even commented on himself being like, are you kidding me? Like, why would we have Nam back?
Thank you, Johnny. And if you want to see Johnny, go to his watch parties for Survivor and House of Villains at survivortix.com and villaintix.com. That Tix is spelled Tix. Go on those, get the VIP. It's worth it. Johnny will have a bunch of guests for all those viewing parties. They are a magnificent time. You will make some core memories out of them, I assure you, and Dan can attest to it. For what he can remember.
Struggling on a 3-day hangover, brother. This was weeks ago, fully recovered now, but it was a trip this season.
Mm-hmm. So go to SurvivorTix or VillainTix.com. They go to the same place, but we have 2 URLs, so use them. And go watch with Johnny in future weeks. So this is now back to the club, and Nariz gives Horacio a lap dance.
Just winning at life. Fucking stallion.
They got him blushing in confessional. And this confessional, allegedly, is weeks after.
That would make sense. That probably tracks.
Yeah.
But good for,
good
Horacio.
For
it's why Horacio doesn't deserve to win the season. And it's not because he's not a good competitor. It's not because he doesn't
he already
deserve
won.
to come back. Yeah, he already won at life. He doesn't get to win $400,000 or whatever the final cash prize is going to be. He doesn't deserve it. He already won Nariz because we know they're still together. So he won. He won the challenge.
He won the challenge of life. I do love Olivia like digging at them a little bit. Like they've known each other for now like over a year, and this is when they start realizing that they like each other more. I guess sometimes it's just a slow burn.
Slow burn.
Slow burn. Horacio's old fashioned.
Yeah, which is crazy seeing this from his first season of Ride or Dies. And maybe it was because he wasn't as interested in Laurel, but it's such the slow play that he's afraid to make any type of move whatsoever. And now he's coming back and he has a little romance thing going on with Huey. And now Nerys is coming on. It's like, damn, Horacio.
Horacio ready. He's ready to become a staple of the challenge. Just keep putting more personality in it, buddy. We support you. We support you. We have Montchal and Corey hash it out, and like Montchal's just like venting at him, and just being like, dude, like you did put me in jeopardy. It doesn't like ultimately, even if it doesn't happen, you risked it. You risked it, and Corey's just like, I'll be honest, I'm not bad at making, or I am bad at making very quick decisions. But in that moment in time, I was only thinking because TJ said a man, and I was only thinking about that. And he cries. Good for him. Good for Montchal for making him cry. Montchal queen.
Yeah, she was really digging in that like
Good.
Hey, not only did I stab you, I'm gonna keep twisting it a few times too. Is if you don't feel like shit right now, I'm gonna make sure that's how you feel by the end of this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then like we're back at the house. This is where we realize that Emmanuel's gonna be like the other name. We hear from Melissa's being like, "Well, you said my name last time. Like, if you win next round and I don't say your name here, would you not say my name?" And Emmanuel's just trying to do that fake thing of like, "Well, I have no reason to go after you. I have other names that are in my sight before you." And Melissa, are you only saying that because you're next on the line right now?
Yeah, it's not really an answer, Emmanuel. Like sometimes when you're up for potential elimination, you can't just play it really political, being like, well, I don't know. Like, we'll have to see how the game plays out. And I have no reason to come after you. So there's no reason to worry. Keep Emmanuel out of your mouth. It's really, I couldn't tell here if he's a really bad liar and game player, or if it had more to do with the language barrier. I'm willing to accept either.
I'm gonna go more with the one than the other because I saw that face he was making. That was a face of nervousness.
Yeah, that cheeky little smirk.
Yeah. And then it's the next morning. We see Asaf and Montchal like sort of speculating on what will go down, and like people are asking Asaf like, "What do you want?" Well, he wants the smartest, the biggest, the strongest, as we know. But he wants to go against Kieran, and Michelle's like, I don't want that, but also just how I am fitted politically right now. If it is partners, they're the only two that I fully am not working in some way with. So I guess I have to take this one. And then on the other side of things, you have Kieran, who I think like his big thing was he didn't politic like the past like 24 hours, like heading into the nomination of like trying to figure out a different name. He was like, I'm not worrying about it. I'm not worrying about it. And then when Raven's like sort of like prompting him, like, well, you should be thinking about this, Kieran just goes, well, if Asaf wants the best person, like I keep hearing all these great things about Horacio. Why isn't he going after Horacio then? Because if you take Horacio out, you'll do well. And that's where Raven's like, well, yeah, Horacio is very strong. He did take out Jordan. And Kieran goes, who's Jordan?
Oh, you're gonna learn today, buddy. You're gonna learn today.
You're gonna learn today, son. But Raven essentially like, and it's like such good prompting here for the episode itself, because Raven's like, well, he beat Jordan, who's a champion. He's done it for a bit, and he's pretty much unbeatable when it comes to eliminations. And then cue to the cutaway of Jordan like bouncing, getting ready to go into elimination. Before they go to commercial.
So we do see this, that Kieran, he isn't politicking. And this is why, not only because of some of the stuff that we've already have seen and are going to see, he's someone that I would definitely be curious to see coming back to. Can he learn from this scenario? Because I believe He got on Australian Challenge because he was on The Bachelor. And
Yeah.
so that's obviously not like this type of game show. And he was able to more squeak by because it was that Bachelor Alliance on the Challenge Australia that dominated it. And
Yeah.
so, okay, he didn't have to politic there. And it kind of bites him here. Maybe if he does, it saves himself. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe he's going in. We don't really know. But that's why I'd be really curious if he comes back. Does he learn from this? Because I think he has all the tools for good reality TV. For a show like The Challenge, he's still just very green.
Yeah, absolutely. We then get a conversation with Corey and James, which we talked about earlier, where James is just like, it's, semi working it with Corey, like, just he's like calling all the Americans selfish. It's more so like this is highlighting that Corey's now feeling isolated by the group because of his decision, and James just being like, like, yeah, you burned the bridges, build a new one, and then you cut the confessional, and he's like, I know it's this American versus UK thing, but like, pound for pound, I trust my UK people, like, are stronger individually. Where this US team looks big, looks like very formidable, but there's cracks. These people do not like each other, so it's like it's only a matter of time until you get that right fissure for it to really break open. I just need that to happen.
Yeah, which surprisingly, is very astute and smart by James. Man
Well,
keeps
as we
surprising me
learned,
here or there.
well, as we learned in his elimination against Chauncey, he's got brains. Why didn't
Sure.
Asaf call him out? He wanted the biggest, the baddest, the smartest. It's clearly James.
Because that's not what Asaf really wanted. We see, which we talked about, is great TV, but there is so much false bravado spewing from Asaf's mouth throughout this entire episode. It's like, I like it. It's entertaining, but come on now. Kieran isn't the biggest and the baddest, but he is a good competitor. So at least give him that.
Competitor.
I don't know who he could throw out that you'd say would be weaker. I don't know. I guess it depends what the elimination is, which at this point they have no idea.
Right. So we get to the nomination. We started off by Asaf once again continuing the streak of this deliberation nomination, where you start asking across the room a very specific question and demanding straightforward answers that you do not get. Asaf wants to start by going like, I don't care what you guys do, just don't trust Corey. He's a snake. I was his brother, and he turned his back on me. And then he starts like asking across the room, like, who feels closer to me or Corey? Horacio, what do you think? Like, Callum, what do you think? And you keep asking, everyone's just like, leave me out of it. Please stop asking me questions. This is not about me right now.
Yeah.
Then he essentially calls out Kieran from here. He's like, I would love to go down to the sand and see which one of us returns Kieran. And Kieran's like, okay, sure. I don't care.
Yeah, it's just surprising that you don't get the confessional from Jay being like, well, you should really nominate yourself, really take control of your own fate.
Well, it's a new phase of the game. It's not about control. It's us not knowing what the chaos is.
That's true. I almost forgot we're in chaos. That's my bad. I don't know how I could forget it, but yeah.
I don't know how I remember that we're in chaos. But it pretty much is straightforward. Goes Kieran. Kieran votes for himself too. It's just like fuck it. I truly do not care enough to put another name out there. But some of the UK girls, well, Melissa and Big T, Zara and Mariah vote for Emmanuel. And Jay once again is being like, Mariah's stigmatized. She's controlled by James. She's just a puppet. She's not working with the rest of the alliance, where we all said Kieran. She still didn't say Kieran. What's Mariah up to?
Which is really just Jay saying, I thought she was my puppet. What do you mean she's someone else's puppet? This is bullshit.
Exactly. I'm supposed to be the center of the hurricane.
How could we
Everyone's supposed
forget?
to be rotating around me. You can't rotate around James.
Yeah, that's
This has to
at,
come to a head at some point.
at some point this has to blow up in Jay's face, I would
Like,
think.
at some point, Mariah's getting a actual storyline, right?
She has to, because at some point, because right now, I think even going into next week, there's not going to be much blowback on saying Emmanuel. But eventually, if she sticks around, the numbers are going to keep dwindling, where she's going to have to make a hard decision and really choose which side she's on. So I
Right.
hope there's a storyline coming, because if not, it's just kind of weird right now and doesn't make a ton of sense other than, well, she likes James.
And James likes Kieran, so she won't vote Kieran.
Yeah, it's all kind of third degree right now.
Yeah, yeah. We get the thing I mentioned before about James saying like, I believe in the UK, like have your mind right. Kieran's like, I have my mind right. I'm not going in feeling like down on myself or in a mood. Like I'm going down to fight to come back. And that gets us to the arena. So Asaf and Kieran are down in the sand. I love that no one claps for Corey, and then Corey gets them to do an ironic, like half passive aggressive clap. He's like, "What? No clap for your winners this round?
Yeah. I finally won a daily. Acknowledge me.
Acknowledge me." And then Raven's just there. I feel bad for Raven that she has like, because good on Raven. Raven did a good job this episode, I feel.
She did a good job, and she's continuing to
Hey,
show as the season
she
goes
kept
on. She's
Kieran
a good
safe
competitor.
initially.
Yeah, and she's showing that she's a good competitor. Now, granted, she did kind of win the lottery because Corey was able to score most of those points, but she didn't do bad herself.
Not at all.
She's
Not at all.
continuing to show that she's there to compete. And I know I said it last week, but I truly believe that we're only scratching the surface of Raven there. Now, hopefully it doesn't blow up in my face and she gets like eliminated next week. But I truly do believe there are some large storylines centered around Raven that are coming. Could be
Oh,
completely wrong, but all the
my
makings are there.
no, Raven right now, outside like our solid core we talked about in previous episodes of like people that will return after this season. Oh, Raven's made my list. Like I fully expect Raven to be around past this season.
I think I still need to see a little bit more from her this season. But it's, I don't know. It's like, for sports, if any, is like that great prospect that it's like you have all the tools that you could easily do this. As the season goes on, are you going to show us that we're right, or are you going to be a bitter disappointment? And if I had to place money right now, as the betting man that I am, I would say that I think we're going to see a lot more from her this season, but who knows?
Yeah, I lean against bitter disappointment when it comes to Raven. I'm enjoying her. I think she has the makeup of it, and I don't think her confessionals are bad, which is also important to me. So
Mhm.
confessionals aren't bad. She's a competitor. She has now won an elimination at least, and didn't have her shoes knocked off.
She did lose a shoe in one round of the elimination.
Whatever. She still won. She still won. It was dominating.
It was.
And a lot of people lose shoes in the sand.
Yeah. Apparently, it turns into a big ordeal conspiracy theory too. Who would have thunk it?
Okay, let me cut into this now. Okay, so Asaf and Kieran are in the sand, but we are in the chaos stage, don't you know? And all of you want to become champions. So in order to be the best, you gotta beat the best. Come on out, Ric Flair. I mean Jordan. And Jordan comes out and he gives him his like the cliff notes of 9 seasons, 6 finals. In 6 of those finals, he was a champion 4 of those times, including the most recent World Championships exclusively on Paramount Plus. And his
Essentially,
mission.
Jordan is won every time that he didn't have some type of anchor that was attached to him. And I don't mean that negatively on Marlon, because I think Marlon was a great competitor that, Marlon would have been a great person to have on the season, but whatever. Who knows for various reasons why Marlon hasn't come back. but it was simply just in Rivals 2, they had, okay, one of the 3 pairs gets eliminated and we're going to make it swimming, where Jordan and Marlon started out at such a big disadvantage because Marlon couldn't really swim. So anytime that Jordan, continue to pump him up, doesn't have an anchor to him, he wins. He doesn't win, he excels.
Right. So we have that, and his mission as a champion and every champion moving forward is to send a contender home. If you send a contender home, you get to take $10,000 out of the prize pot, and it's now yours. That's a good payday for one night only. Jordan Wisely, can you win 10K? He can. But the next part of the twist of the chaos phase is now there's a draw.
Can I just say, sorry, really quickly,
Yeah.
because I don't know if there'll be a segue of going back into it, is when, okay, they're pooling $10,000, it's the first time that I'm going to say, fuck you, Jay, is he goes, well, I don't want to be, the poorest challenge champion of all time or whatever. It's like, they used to make less than $100,000 for winning. Get the fuck out of here. You're a student of this game. Like, no, don't give me that poor Cry Me a River bullshit.
Well, here's my thing to it. It's specifically to Jay, being the poorest ever. Hunter's a challenge champion. What was his prize pot, Dan?
He is a challenge champion.
He is a challenge champion. The title's there. How much did he win?
0.
Yeah, he won 0, Jay. So try harder to become the poorest. The challenge money. That should be your goal now. It's like, let the season go on for a year and a half. You keep losing eliminations. You keep losing money out of the prize money. And when you win, it's like, oh, you owe the challenge negative $10,000. Then you can be the poorest challenge champion of all time. And only then.
That is true. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. You can get
no. I love that. I remember you mentioned you had a thing about Jordan or Jay's quote there. So we have the draw. There's 3 poles in the sand. One says Kieran's name. One says Asaf's name. One's leaving a mystery because it's the chaos phase. Let's let it reveal itself in time. So we were both speculating off of the podcast. And I think both of us agreed. The third one I feel has to be that the champion gets to choose his challenger. And it can be any of the guys, or on a girls' night, any of the women outside of whoever is like in the winner's circle that round.
Yeah, that would be my guess, that had this, third poll been picked, Jordan could have called out anyone. Now, what would have been interesting, and maybe it is, he can call out anyone in the house, or I'd be curious if it's you pull that random poll and not only can he pick anyone, but Kieran and Asaf are automatically safe, and it's someone that's up top, or if it's just anyone other than Corey.
I think that would be the case, though. Like, it's like, say he did pull that and he's like, oh, it's a speed endurance challenge. James, come on down. I think right then and there, that means Asaf, that TJ would look over at, well, Asaf, Kieran, it's your lucky day. Go back up there. You're safe. But he pulls Kieran here. So we don't know that for sure yet. But I would have loved the idea of that in this specific episode. If they just made all 3 of them, you can pick. Because everyone else was in street clothes. So it would have been hilarious for him to pick Emmanuel in his skinny jeans to have to do a bunch of ramp suicides.
It should have been Emmanuel. Come on, dollar store.
But Emmanuel wanted it. Until told.
He wanted it.
Until told. We'll get there.
I'm not done with you yet,
that's how we'll end the podcast. There, okay?
Fair enough.
So Asaf is safe, and Asaf, being the delusional man that he is just like, I wanted to be down there to face the legend. I'm like, no, that means you don't want to become a champion. Like,
Aesop would
it's
have gotten
rare. It's
smoked.
rare to see Jordan lose an elimination. He lost to Horacio because Horacio is like a legitimate soccer player and faced him in Balls Out. He lost
Stallion.
to Johnny Bananas in the wall climb because well, Bananas has two hands. Like all said and done, it's no knock against Jordan, and Jordan knows that. It's just like, and Jordan still was doing very well there. Like, it could have been Jordan if he didn't slip because he had to use like his elbow or something, if I remember correctly. So it's very rare instances that we see Jordan lose. Oh, and he also lost the Bananas and Balls Out.
Yeah, but mainly, he was also tied with Anissa. Like,
Anissa would have won. I will say though, Anissa would have dog walked Nany if like she actually had a healthy leg there.
Oh, I agree.
Like Bananas still legitimately is why they win that elimination, not Nany.
No, that's fair. All right, yeah, I'll give you that.
Hey, see, Anissa, I defended you one time. I am good for the rest of my life.
Every episode.
Almost every episode. I've been getting better. But the elimination is King of the Hill. There are 2 giant ramps. On each ramp, there's 3 lights and 3 buttons that are attached to each light. There's going to be 3. Okay, let's just break it down. There were 5 rounds. They say it's best 2 out of 3. It was really best 3 out of 5. Each round is 1 minute long, and it starts with 1 button or 1 light already lit, as TJ says go. And no other light will light up until you have someone press that button to turn off the light. For each time you are the person who presses the button to turn off the light, you get a point. Most points in the round you win. Best 2 out of 3 on the show, best 3 out of 5 in real life is the namesake of the challenge. And more importantly, you're not allowed to wrestle. You're allowed to bump. You're allowed to like bump on your way up, but you're not allowed to wrestle each other. If you wrestle, you have to reset. So let's start there.
At the wrestling part, where do you want to start with this elimination?
So my note here, Dan, is let's break down, because I'm sure you watched it too. I think it makes more sense for us to break it down through Jordan's Instagram video that he put out, explaining like step by step how the challenge happened. Because like Jordan, so the big controversy that was going on initially post the episode airing originally was there were a bunch of screenshots of Jordan clearly starting in yellow shoes, but then in other instances you only saw black. Originally people thought that he changed his shoes, required the challenge producers to restart the challenge entirely, and that's how he gets his win against Kieran, because Kieran was beating his ass before then. In reality, it was pretty evenly matched until like the second half. Like Kieran did get a legitimate win. Jordan owns that. Like they both had instances in the first 2 rounds where they were slipping because of their shoes. So Jordan just like takes his shoes off. But like he resets to help Kieran when Kieran does. Kieran doesn't reset when Jordan does it for him. Jordan doesn't care. They start out 1-1, I believe.
Yes, Jordan wins the first round.
Yeah.
So
Kieran wins second round and third round.
Correct.
And the third round is what we see shown as like the first round is Kieran winning. Like I think they show us rounds 3, 4, and 5 on the show because we see Kieran win in the third round.
You're right.
And then in the fourth round is where you see Jordan just standing there, letting Kieran get 2 points. Then you keep hearing him in the show going like, oh, let him have those 2, let him have those 2. And without the context of what actually happened down in the sand, no one in the audience or watching should understand what he's talking about when saying like, oh, let him have those 2, let him have those 2.
Yeah, so Jordan's whole thing here is he said, which would have been round 3, but what we kind of see is round 1. It's that last one the only one that we see Kieran win is Kieran has the lead in the challenge. And at one point, they get to wrestling, which is described to be, 15, 20 seconds. And to their mind, the rules are if you start wrestling, where we did see it once or twice, they're reset in the middle and no time goes off. According to Jordan, which other members of the cast have corroborated, is they're wrestling for 15, 20 seconds, with Jordan is saying, hey, if I'm already down, that puts me at a disadvantage. I thought we were supposed to stop. And if this is the way that we're playing this game, it's not necessarily, oh, this is bullshit, this isn't how it's going to be, but you have to let me know, because that changes my strategy completely of I can go win 1 or 2 lights pretty quickly, and then I'll just tie Kieran up for 45 seconds so he can't go get a light.
Right. So that's why you see him just standing there being like, I'll let you get those 2. And then suddenly they're reset. And you're like, well, why are they resetting? If he was just letting him get those 2, you would just keep going. That's why. But ultimately, Jordan comes back from behind there and wins 7-4. And doing what Jordan does, he wants to intimidate and like really break down his opponent. So like he's counting out loud every single time. Once he tied up, he's like, oh, it's 2-2. Now it's 3-2. Now it's 4-2. 5-2, but you gotta pick it up. But what was the more impressive strategy for him was the last round, where as soon as he got the first one and everyone's just waiting for the next one to happen, he's pausing before he touches it. He's just like, well, there's only 1 minute. I can wait as long as I want up here because I got here first, and Kieran's already giving up and getting ready for the second one. If I keep just stalling and make him come up and use more energy to come up, then I just recovered from the little burst of speed I had to do. Then I hit that button. Now I have a chance to go get the second one. And even if I don't, I can just keep doing this because I'm always going to be either tied or in the lead.
Mm-hmm. No,
which I thought was very, very impressive of Jordan there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just kind of re-saying what you did, but it's incredibly impressive because it's shortening the rounds, and it's also, it's giving him that chance to rest, 3-4 seconds. I'm not going to hit the button. I'm going to make Kieran waste all that energy to race up, and chances are, okay, I'm going to hit it as he's running up, and then I'm going to have the advantage if we're sprinting back across to the other side, because I had that 3-4 second break while Kieran just spent it trying to come up here to force the pace to go back and forth.
Right. So ultimately, Jordan does get the win here. He wins 3-2, and takes $10,000. So their prize pot is now down to $396. Making them the poorest challenge champion ever.
Son of a bitch.
Then Kieran is pissed. He's in tears just because he worked so damn hard and this still falls short. I will mention though, we did not hear from TJ. We hope to see you again in the future.
Oh, that's
it's right. The first time this season we didn't get it,
which is weird.
Yeah,
but okay.
Yeah. And then he's talking with Jordan, and Jordan sort of just saying to all these people what it means to be a champion and what you need to do to become a champion. And in some regards, I can understand if you're someone who's been on the show, I don't need to hear this from Jordan type of thing. There is a part of it where you're this is very patronizing. I don't need to hear this, even though it's I think from Jordan, it's partly patronizing, but also good intentions of doing what he feels like he should do. It's Jordan. We all know that. End of the day, Jordan good to Jordan. But we see Emmanuel decide to be as Turbo says, a pussy chicken, and decide to try to show disrespect to Jordan by turning his back to him and saying, I don't care what Jordan has to say. If he ever wants to talk, this is all he's going to see, and it's the back of my head. And we see him TJ goes, well, does anyone else have anything left to say to Jordan before I let him go? And Emmanuel goes I wish I was down to sand. And Jordan just goes, well, you could have. You can come down right now if you want. And Emmanuel's no, that's not how the game works. No. Damn. We'll finish the show with this. Go on your tangent.
So I did like it was right after, Jordan saying you could have come down as we do get the flashback of Jordan and free agents pulling all the kill cards and then like, all right, bananas, you're mine. Like, let's go. And so of all the people to say, oh no, I really can't do that. Jordan is the only person you can't say that to because he's literally done it himself, forced his way into elimination. And just turning around, doing that, whatever it was behind, get bent, Emmanuel. Fuck you. But my bigger tangent on all of this is, so the episode goes on Wednesday and it comes out. And of course, I believe that there could have been more, but the two tweets that I see are from Nerys and Montchal that are just being like, that's not exactly how I remember the elimination. And then the whole social media world just spirals and goes out of control. And it's all these conspiracy theories that, oh, Jordan, threw a temper tantrum and demanded new shoes. And he did so many different things. And to this, all I need to say is to the Gamer Vev and all the spoiler accounts, fuck you. Like, I can't stand you for so many reasons. One, because you're spewing this bullshit out there that is clearly not true whatsoever. And then when it finally gets corrected, what do? You go, oh, I was clearly joking. Like, I didn't really mean it. No, you knew what you were doing. You're being dicks. I have multiple reasons to go after this, but, taking this step by step. One, you suck. You suck so much because you put these spoilers out there, and then all these stupid people that follow you, you make it so the rest of us, we can't look at social media. Because if you look at any post that, someone tweets out about the challenge, don't click it. Because if you click it, what ends up happening is there's one of your asshole followers goes and go, oh, well, so-and-so knocks out, so-and-so in elimination, or so-and-so wins the challenge. No, I don't want to see that. I personally don't think, or my personal belief is I don't want to know who goes. It doesn't make it more enjoyable for me. And especially like doing this podcast, because one of the times where I stupidly clicked to go, oh, what's on this thread was last season of Ride or Dies. So it was spoiled for me pretty early on that Tori and Devin won. And it made the podcast harder because you know what happened? You astutely were picking up being like, well, I think Tori and Devin may actually win the season. What am I supposed to say at that point? Being like, oh, yeah,
I
no,
saw the spoiler. They're right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I think they're going to win. No, I have to push back with reasons that I'm just grasping at straws for because no one's really going to care being like, oh, you guys are so smart. Like you read the spoilers and you called who win. No, we're trying to make a podcast. So I'm picking at bullshit that I know isn't true to push back on because what else am I supposed to do? So number one, fuck you for putting that out there and all your followers. You're the worst. I can't stand it. Number two, then what happens is we do see after all this comes out, it is Montchal that finally, we see her comment on Jordan's video that goes, no, like this actually makes sense. This is how I remember it. And then Nerys put out a tweet being like, it was tagging one of those spoiler accounts. I think that was saying like, oh, that Jordan had a headset or something. It was like, where are you getting all this from? Like, that's ridiculous. That's not what I said by this. Like, Jordan won fair and square because Jordan goes out there and dominates. And then what do? They attack Nerys, calling her all sorts of names about how she's this terrible person that's just trying to be called back. Fuck you again. Nerys doesn't deserve that. And
she already was getting called back.
She was already getting called back. And then what goes is I had no idea. I assumed that Gamer Vev was a woman. No, apparently it's a dude, which makes it even worse because you're just trashing these women for no fucking reason whatsoever. So the whole spoiler community, Gamer Vev and MTV Exposed, all of you specifically, I'll say it again, louder for all the people in the back. Fuck you. You suck. And I'm done.
I felt like that was some good therapy for you, Dan. Just letting it all come out. So like for me, when it comes to like Gamer Bev and MTV Exposed and all that, like I'll follow the accounts, but like I usually, as soon as I know the cast, because that's all I really care about is knowing the cast, knowing the theme of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Once I know that, I put them on mute, and so then if they come up, it'll block it for me. It'll let me decide if I want to click it or not. I actively choose not to click it, and then like I'll unmute them as soon as like we're late enough into the season where it does not matter because I probably have a good idea of what's going to happen anyway. So like that's sort of like how I deal with them. I totally get all the pettiness of like them tearing people down and attacking people when they are shown that they are only giving half truths or anything like that. It's like ultimately we all have to realize these people who get spoilers, while accurate, also have a lot of like they put some personal opinion into other factors of it that aren't definitive, like a so and so beat so and so. So always take stuff like that with a grain of salt. End of the day, they are no different, like speaking their opinions than we are on this podcast speaking ours. So like don't take their weight as gold. It ain't. If their weight was gold, they would be a producer or a contestant on the show. And that's what it is. But that does wrap up this week's episode. We got to see Jordanimal in action, get his win, get his 10K, go back to his Formula racing. And you know this season's serving for me. So all the people are like, oh, why you should all watch stop watching the challenge. Fuck you. It's a fun season. It's messy. It's not the best gameplay, obviously, and sure, you don't have your favorites there 100% of the time. But I will always ride with this is you don't know if someone can be your next favorite thing unless you give them the chance to show it. And you only have a chance to show it is by getting rid of the people that you hold as your crutch for the show. And that is what MTV's doing right now. They wanted to guarantee another champion, guarantee another person that could come to like an all-winners style season, whatever. Doesn't matter what the motivation is. The point is they're doing something where outside of an elimination, which is a 10 to 15 minute segment on a 90-minute episode, they are relying on a bunch of new people to try to create new stars for future seasons. And for that, I applaud them. But that wraps up our coverage. We'll be here every Sunday, maybe a rare Friday here and there, covering the challenge. We'll be here Wednesday nights after Survivor, talking the latest Survivor episode, as well as usually either late Sunday or Monday. Matt does his House of Villains roundtable with Johnny and whoever from the Reality After Show team that is able to make it. We'll discuss the latest episodes. You know, House of Villains has been serving. I'm going to be rewatching the episodes today before football starts. It's going to be a great time for me because I didn't get a lot of sleep because of you. Y'all ain't going to get a lot of sleep because of me either, because you're going to be listening to this podcast. And we thank you for supporting us. If you're watching the video, subscribe to the channel, press that bell for notifications, like the video. Really helps with the algorithms, as well as if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Music, Prime, whatever, give us 5 stars. That also helps just get our platform out there for other people who are interested in the shows that we cover. We thank all of you for listening. We'll see you next time. Peace. We love y'all.
See y'all. Fuck you, Gamer Rev.